Yo!
Whoa, we're here.
Oh, we're supposed to actually be live now. We're too busy talking and almost missed the end of the video.
Oh, it's the week before Christmas, right?
And all through the house.
Not a creature was stirring.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not even going to finish that. Not even a mouse. Oh, my God.
And that might get us a copyright strike.
Oh, that might. Yeah, we don't want that. Disregard those back up. Boy, Brett Chittum, CNWR, and here.
Jason Slayo, CNWR.
I think they know us by now, but it's still good to always say it.
I'm not with Spencer, for the record.
I wasn't at that one, so I couldn't get a shirt. So that's actually a cool story. But we're talking about goals today. And I think I sent you a thing this morning.
You did.
Have you achieved your goal for 2023? And if not, I was thinking, what are you doing to achieve it in these last 2 weeks? I know it's hard, holiday season time, but what are some of the things that people are doing? And that's what, it's not like we have anybody on right this second. We have a few, but, you can ask some questions. But I think it's a rhetorical question. When you think about goal setting, you shouldn't wait the last 2 weeks to achieve them, should you?
No, we definitely have a couple quarterly goals that for mine that I'm probably going to hit this week and next week, just because other priorities have taken me in other directions, but I want to get them done. So I'll push them forward the rest of the way this week.
Yeah.
I'm off next week, but I'll probably still push them forward next week.
You see, this guy doesn't know how to take time off.
Pot, kettle black.
All right. Yeah. All right. I know. I think it stems from when I owned a business, and you own a business now. So it's an interesting concept. So for us, I mean, third quarter was interesting. Fourth quarter
was insane, is insane. It's not over yet. Still has room for a little more insanity.
It totally does. So how did we do that? I mean, seriously, how did we set a goal? So that's one thing. I think it's important to know you should set a goal if you want to make your goal.
You should set more than one goal, right? And the other alternative topic I proposed to Brett this morning is management frameworks, whether you need one, whether you should do one, right? Whatever the case is. And we've been pretty open on this show about, we're an EOS shop.
Right.
We've done several. I have mixed thoughts on EOS. I have mixed thoughts on all the management leadership frameworks, because honestly, they all do the same thing. They just maybe take slightly different roads to get there. But you should set some sort of plan, right? Like we set a yearly plan. We sat in meetings Thursday last week, and we set our roadmap for 2024. And then we'll break. What'll happen is, based on those yearly goals we set, we'll break them down into quarterly goals, and we'll execute on them over time. So we have what you said, basically, don't wait till the last week of the quarter to be trying to hit your yearly goals, and don't wait until halfway through the year to set your yearly goals. Now is the time you should be approaching what you want to do next year.
And when you're thinking about your goals in any business, what should we be looking at? I mean, when we look at, first off, obviously, what do we want our revenue to be at the end of the year, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think that financial goals are an important part of this, because they can benchmark where you're at, right? However, they also can get thrown completely up in the air, right? Like we set our finance goal last year at a pretty, I could probably talk about it here. I'm trying to decide if I want to share what it was. We set it at a pretty good number, but when we set it, when we were in our planning about a year ago, right? It was, I think, honestly, last year also.
Right.
It wasn't, we were deep into talks about merging with Lawrence, but it wasn't set in stone yet. So one of the things that I was adamant on is I'm not going to set our yearly finance goals and our other goals around that happening, right? So one of the yearly goals was actually to take that to its natural logical conclusion, right? Like either we decide it's going to go forward, or we decide it's not going to go forward. And, it kind of screwed up our finance goal in a good way when it did
Right.
actually go through. So we actually in July ended up reforecasting our goal for the year based on the merger.
6 month.
Yeah, the 6 months numbers with the Lawrence edition, and we crushed those too.
Yeah. It's interesting how many businesses that don't plan, and I see that you're kind of looking on the side of the screen. I see you're looking at the business plan a little bit. But what are you planning to do?
The camera not focusing.
Oh, it's probably because I moved. What are you planning to do with next year, 2024? I think it's going to be an interesting year. We're 3 years out of COVID. Things have normalized a lot.
Society is normalized a lot in a post-COVID world. I don't know that the economy has normalized.
In our industry, in the IT industry,
the IT industry hasn't been as affected, I believe, but I am starting to see some evidence that it is starting to trickle down. Right, I'm seeing companies be a little bit tighter with their cash flow than they were, coming up to COVID, and then immediately following COVID. Obviously, during COVID, everyone was like,
I need to get people working from home.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was that, but there was also companies that it's like we can't reasonably work from home or a doctor's office, right? So it's like, what can you work with us, and what can you do to help us survive? We've kind of come through that, and now we're starting to see, okay, there is a little bit of a downturn, inflation's high, so what can we do to preserve cash flow? So we're seeing some of that.
Yeah, I think in a post-COVID world, I think people actually look more at the budget. I mean,
I think so.
I mean, I remember companies saying, "Well, it's over budget, but heck, we need to get this done," and they're not saying that anymore. They're saying, "Well, we need to fit into this budget.
Yeah,
how can we do that?"
I would have to pull the history to know what this year's goals were, and I will at some point or another. I probably won't do it on this call, but I mean, we set some goals for this upcoming year, right? That and a lot of them are based on the fact that we've grown big enough now that we're starting to hit some cracks in the services department with regards to, in particular, Matt, or my VP of Ops. He has 13, 14 direct reports.
Yeah,
too many, right? So we have a couple of goals specifically around, like, I think it's finally to the point where we need a service manager to work under him. And,
yeah, absolutely.
And we need to reorganize the service department in a way that results in no one having more than 8 direct reports. So those are, a couple of the goals that we've set. Those are growing pain problems, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, and that's something to be expected, because as we grow in this industry, and as we grow in employees, you're going to find that it becomes at some point counterproductive to have too many people to report to you. You have to break it up. I mean, for you, in essence, everybody reports to you, but really you only have 3 direct.
No one reports to me.
Yeah. I mean, and so 3, 4.
Yeah, you, Tom, Matt, and Alan, 4.
Yeah, so I mean, but overall with 26 employees, it's still everybody's looking at you.
Yeah,
and it's interesting. I got to tell you guys, it's interesting what I see and what I've seen over this last 6 months, and being in this side of the house as opposed to Lawrence. This guy's a leader. I'm gonna be honest with you. No. I see it in the employees as well. And I think you talked a little bit about EOS. I think EOS has helped that.
It has. I consume a non-zero amount of business books. Like, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on where you live in the world, most of my reading is either technical stuff or business stuff.
Right.
And so Leaders Eat Last, Start with Why, the Simon Sinek books, EOS, the traction books. I actually Lead Like Lasso, Marnie's new book. I think it's here.
I'm looking in your pile over here.
It's around.
Is that Lead Like Ted Lasso?
Yeah, I think so.
So
I'll read that. And, you kind of go through, and I try to absorb. I try to, one, not like immediately react and change the entire world based on that one leadership book I read, but I do try to absorb a couple things out of them. And that comes back to like an entire episode we should do about leadership paradigms and management consulting. And I have a lot of goods and a lot of bads. especially in the MSP space. I honestly think we have, I think there's 4, maybe 5 big MSP playbook frameworks that people are teaching, right? Like, with C-Level and Gary Pica's thing, I can't remember what it's called. Taylor Business Group, Barry McKinley, they all teach the same thing.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that that's the only answer to the direction, but I mean, they all encourage you to set goals. They all encourage you to go back to the topic here. They all encourage you to set some yearly goals. Jonathan actually,
I like that one.
Actually asked a really good question here. How different is a goal for revenue versus profit? When you look at growing, I'm sure you can put profit in the back seat. We don't.
We don't at all. No, you don't. You don't put profit is how you continue to grow.
No, I mean,
it's how you be able to invest back in.
You can, when you're in a growth mode, right? Like I don't know that you can attempt to necessarily optimize for profit, but I think you're doing, unless you're willing to take in investors and outside sources of funding, I don't think you can afford to not consider profit. If you're going to bootstrap and you're going to grow organically without, PE-backed money or some other sort of thing, I think you can't lose sight of profit. We do set a profit goal. We follow it and we track it. Industry standard metrics for top quartile MSPs, I think, is in the 17% range. So if you're more than 15 to 17% gross profit, and I'm not going to say EBITDA because EBITDA is a bunch of made up bullshit for most small businesses that are S corps, right? Like somebody was arguing with me on Facebook about it the other day. Oh, you got all these ad backs and blah blah blah, and they're ad backs, right? Like they're not really. I consider those ad backs. If you're an S corp and you're doing flow through taxes are and you don't have outside debt, there's no interest. You have very little amortization, and your taxes are flow through. So your EBITDA and your net ordinary income are damn near the same thing, right? Like why break your brain trying to calculate EBITDA?
Correct.
But we set a profit goal based on industry standard metrics. I knew with the merger of Lawrence that our profit would take a little bit of a hit. And I factored that in, right?
Because bringing on more employees.
Yeah. And transparently, your net profit margins were about half of what ours were on. And I knew that, right? And I knew that we would take a little bit of a hit there, and it was all calculated in. So, Jonathan, to directly answer your question, set both, right? But don't set both. Set a target for net profit, right? Say it was 9% last year, right? Or 7% last year. Set it to 9% this year, right? Just grow it a little bit, and then set a revenue goal. And the revenue goal you set will pop out what the profit needs to look like on the other end. I also actually recommend a book called Profit First. Who wrote that? Was it Mike Michalowicz? Yeah, Mike Michalowicz. That's actually a good book that talks about a framework you can do to do that, where it's like you take your profit that you expect and you pull that out of the bank and move it to a different account, and then the money's not there, and you have to figure out how to make it work with all the rest of it. It's an interesting method that you can use to kind of do that.
Well, I mean, I think if you're tracking right, you don't need to move things to a different account. You show different accounts within your QuickBooks, and having one account and being able to not spend from that account when you don't have it, or when you want to have money sitting in the wayside for something that comes up, like purchasing a business, right? Merging a business or bringing on more employees.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, there's when you're setting your finance goal, like one of the things that we didn't get to,
there's an ambulance.
An ambulance. You probably hear it. It's coming. One of the things we didn't get to in our leadership team this time that I'll punt to one of our weekly meetings is with our finance goals and with our profit goals and everything else, and in the things we have listed here that we want to do, what does our headcount look like throughout the year, right? So it's like for us to hit our yearly revenue goal that I have forecast, which is a modest growth over this year. Although looking at it now, I feel like it's a little low.
Wait, what? I thought we.
Oh, no, that's right. That's right. Okay. Nope, that's right.
Yeah, because we went 20, right? Or 27.
No, and there's some other things in there too. I will have to increase headcount to get there, right? So like you have to do a map of what that looks like, and inevitably, when you first hire that headcount, especially in the services department, your service to salary ratio will take a hit, right? And that's one of the key metrics we track. We try to keep service department salaries at less than 33% of service department revenue. That will, when I hire, that might tick over 33%, right? And then it's on sales to drive enough additional work and revenue with the additional capacity to drive that back down under that 33% range, right? So in the short term, net profit will suffer a little bit. We set some goals this year too around some things. We're started the Trustmark process, although CJ or Chris will yell at me because I'm supposed to meet with them and I haven't yet, right? So we set a goal this year to complete that, right? Like I think that's a fairly laudable goal. And I think you should set your goals. I was actually really pushy on our team this year to not set goals for things that we immediately knew we were going to get done, right? Like we're hiring a sales admin, right? I've already
that wasn't a goal.
He wanted to make it a yearly goal, and I'm like, no, I've already approved the position, right? Like this isn't this does not rise to the level of being a yearly goal.
I asked. I didn't make a statement. I was asking a question about it. So it was put me out there, eh?
I am putting you out there. So, I mean, when you set goals, like I always try to use SMART, right? Like it's as cliched and crappy as it is, right? So specific, measurable, attainable, realistic. I think it's realistic and timely, right? Yep. So it's like I want goals to be realistic in both directions. I want it to be achievable, but I don't want it to be easy, right? Like I don't want to go into this thing and set ourselves a bunch of goals where it's like, we get to the end of the Q1, it's like, well, we finished our goals for the year. Now what do we do?
Yeah, we don't want that. Well, that's why you don't setting a goal for the same goal you had last year doesn't make sense to me. That's why we talked about a percentage of increase that we wanted. And we looked at historically what our percentage of increase was. So we set a goal based off that. But there's stretch goals as well, right? And I think sometimes when we're looking at our quarterly goals, I think we do that. We create a stretch goal when we're doing our quarterly goals a little bit. Would you say?
On the finance side, I think we do.
Yeah.
Not so much on the things to get done side of the house.
Right. Well, and that's the thing, getting things done. One thing that I will tell you with EOS is creating rocks that's a neat conversation to have, and maybe we should have one talk about how you create rocks. And you said something in the meeting because I was saying, man, I don't have enough rocks. I was actually saying I don't have enough work, and you said, well, what do you want to get done in 2024? That's going to become a rock. And so it's really a simple statement. What do you want to get done? And that becomes a rock.
It's 100% a simple statement, right? So like you can back into it, right? So like there are things that directly support the finance goal, and there are things that don't directly support the finance goal, right? So it's we forecasted a 27% revenue increase for next year, which is pretty consistent with what we've been doing, right? Like I should have forecasted higher than that because, it'd be nice to grow more this year than we did last year.
Right.
But if we're going to grow 27%, this is the amount of revenue. This is, we have an industry accepted split that we use for, although it's not industry accepted, I took an industry accepted split and I changed it to be more aligned with where I think the world should live, right? So we're looking at typically less than 40% of that being hardware sales.
Correct.
Right. And then if you break the non-hardware sales up, I want 50 to 60% of that to be recurring revenue,
right?
30 to 40% of that to be project-based work, and like 10 to 20% of that to be hourly.
Right.
Right. And so that differs from our group, or my coaching group. We use Barry McKinley. It differs from them because they have a 40-30-30 split, right? They want 40% recurring, 30% 30% project, 30% hourly or T&M. I don't want as much hourly or T&M, so we do that. But you look at that project work and you look at the other work that comes along with it, and you can back of the envelope calculate the number of hours that you have to sell, or the number of fixed fee, roughly the number of hours, right? Assume you can, using other metrics like effectively hourly rate, you can back into the number of hours you need to sell to hit that piece of the goal, the project goal. And then you can look at your available capacity and you can go, I don't have enough bodies to hit that goal. So now we back into another goal. Okay, at some point of the year, I'm going to have to hire another person, right? And you can kind of back into goals that way.
Well, hence, talking about, a sales service manager and the sales admin and bringing people in that help create more activity.
Yeah.
Help create efficiencies. That's what a service manager is going to do. They're going to help in alleviating Matt from, pulling all his hair out.
Yeah.
That's no pun intended.
Well,
sorry, Matt.
There are interesting things that come along with that. Like, you were pushing me to hire a dedicated salesperson just to do project work. And like, when I mathed that out to you, like, we came to the conclusion that right now it doesn't make sense to do that. There's not enough work. There's not enough essentially commission value that I can place on that to feed that person.
And it's not consistent either. Yeah. That was the biggest thing we talked about, because we're going to come into the first quarter and there's going to be some good numbers, but come second quarter, it always drops down.
Yeah.
Always. And what's that person do? So we actually created a hybrid in essence of somebody doing both, right?
Yeah, that we did. And that actually brings another interesting year, right? So we set our finance goal for the year. It's doing that weird focusing again. I'm going to have to work that out. It's probably a setting on this camera. Hello, camera. I'm right here. Focus on me. No, you don't want to? I'm just going to click on my face on you then.
There we go.
There you go. I don't have face tracking turned on. I probably ought to turn it on. We set a yearly goal, right? And then somebody in the meeting, and it was either you or Tom, said, why don't we just divide the yearly goal by 4 and just set that to the quarterly goal? Why do we set an independent quarterly goal? Okay. But I know from years of doing this that not all quarters are created equal.
No, they're not.
Quarter 1 tends to be strong. Quarter 4 tends to be really strong. Quarter 2 tends to be really weak. It is by far typically our worst quarter for revenue project wise. I don't know why that is. And quarter 3 tends to be recover, right? So we got this high and then we dip.
And then we start to come back up again.
Oh, yeah.
Wait.
Travis.
I am hybrid.
I'm going to change your name in Slack to hybrid.
That's well, and coming to, full circle on that, when we're setting our goals, we know what we want, but I asked that question only because I thought we were moving a target. I didn't look at what you set for your quarterly goals for quarter 2 before asking that question.
Yeah.
And so you actually did it that way.
Oh, 100%.
You did quarter 1, quarter 2, quarterly, quarter 3, quarter 4.
Yep.
And I remember when we set the fourth quarter goals, Matt and I, and you looked at us like we were crazy.
Oh, I did. So 2 things, right? So in years past, before this year, we set our Q4 goal to be whatever was left in our yearly goal.
I tried to do that, and Matt wouldn't let me.
Well, you tried to do that, and I looked at you and I go, "That's like
we already hit it
under $1 million, and we've not had a quarter under $1 million in like 8 quarters now. Like, why would you set your goal that low?"
Yeah.
You
I never set a number. But then you walked out of the room for about 20 minutes and came back and you were like, holy shit, what'd you guys do?
Yeah, that is true. I had a call. I came back and they forecasted us our biggest quarter by a lot, and we exceeded it.
We did. Hey, I mean,
yeah,
that's to everybody's testament, though.
I take zero credit for that. Mm-hmm. It's all work of the people under me. Like Matt was joking that he doesn't really do any work anymore. He just like makes other people do work, and that holds even more true with me. I try to make sure the ship is going, and my goals, and to take it back on topic, because I try to stay relatively on topic here.
And this is all flowing together.
I'm setting the direction the ship is going, and my goal is to make sure that the 4 people that work under me are all rowing in that direction, and not like Brett. Sometimes Brett likes to row that way when we're going that way, and so I'm like, no, Brett, like, if you're gonna row in prevailing that direction, can you at least row that way instead of
so
this
it mixes
way?
It in a little bit more? Yeah. So
at least we are kind of going where we want to go.
It's squirrel, man.
And I think that salespeople want to sales, and they want to. 2 things: they genuinely want to help people, right? Like in Tom, that was a big topic of conversation with Tom, right? He gets all these bookings that come in, and some of them aren't our ideal customer profile, and
Right.
he wants to help them, but they're going that way and we're going that way, right? So it's like let's figure out another way to help them that doesn't necessarily involve us making our boat go to the wrong island.
Yeah.
And so
I totally agree with that, though.
My job is to set the direction the boat is rowing and make sure that and support you to make sure that you're all rowing in the same direction. And I try to set our yearly goals to the yearly goals are the map we use to like steer the boat. Right. Like, at the end of this year, these are our goals and this is the direction we're rowing. And then from those yearly goals, all of the quarterly goals will pop out. And then one of the things that I really want to drive home this year is department goals. We used to do them. We kind of fell off of them. Scorecards, right? Like other things like that, so that we can track that the boat is actually going in the right direction in a leading fashion. A lot of the metrics we're using for internally tracking transparently are lagging indicators, and that sucks. So,
hey, peanut butter. It all depends on how much peanut butter whiskey I have.
I don't have any of that.
All right, Travis, you crack me up.
Okay.
So I mean, ultimately, if you're thinking, let's wrap this up. If you're looking at your goals, you won't know if you hit your goals if you didn't set your goals. They got to follow some type of a smart kind of criteria, right? Specific, measurable, obtainable, reachable. No, I think R is not reachable because attainable, realistic, and then timely. When you think about that,
relevant,
realistic, relevant.
I've heard both ways.
When you think about your goals, you got to set them, right? So now is the time you should be setting those goals, because we're 2 weeks to the new year. It's you. I hope you at least have an idea of how much you want to grow. Figure out how much you want to grow. Figure out what you want your profit to be, and then look at how you're going to get there, because you're going to have to create some rocks as of an EOS to get you to those things.
Yep. Interestingly, the original version of SMART was specific, measurable, assignable, realistic, and time related, right? But most commonly, it's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound.
So we're both right, and both. I'm older than you, so I heard probably the original.
Yeah. I mean, since I was 1 when the original came out, you probably did.
I'm not that much older than you, am I?
10 years.
Is it 10?
I think so.
Damn.
What are you, 53?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm 43.
Oh, now everyone knows our age. I'm the old guy. I'm the old guy in the office.
No, you're not. Alan is.
Yeah, but he's not in the office every
that's
day.
True.
So
okay.
All right,
Let's wrap this. I am not Wes Spencer, and this is
not Jason Slagle. I'm Brett Chittum. I'm going to get with not Jason Slagle.
This was Business Technicalities. We'll talk to you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.